Welcome to episode 54 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Bread and circuses.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise happens upon an Earth-like planet where a Roman-esque civilization has persevered into the 20th century. Observing the partial integration of a freighter crew, Kirk, Spock and McCoy head to the surface to learn more, but are soon captured. With television ratings at an all-time high, can Kirk survive the circus, or will he end up as a meal for the lions?
All those. I call them ears. Trying to be funny. Never.
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. How are you?
I'm very well. What do you call those?
My ears.
I know you're not trying to be funny.
Never knowingly funny on this podcast, either of us. You excited to see another Earth-like planet in this week's episode?
I am. A couple of bits I really liked.
One of your favourite themes.
Indeed.
There's some interesting comparisons, I thought, with the Omega Glory from a few weeks ago.
In what way?
With the ancient Earth civilizations and the near comparisons. It's not so much the same as the Patterns of Force, where there was a human that brought it with them, but these other planets where they've developed independently the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an interesting episode. I think I have, I've got some issues. One that really annoyed me, to be fair.
Probably going to get to that towards the end, I imagine.
No, right at the beginning.
One right at the start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the biggest one for me.
Okay, well, before we get into it, I never do this at the beginning anymore, so I'll remind people to join our conversation during the week on social media. We're at Trek Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and you can always come to astartrekpodcast.com where there's a post up for each episode, and if you prefer, you can watch/listen to us on YouTube. More listen, there's not really any watching to be done.
Okay, thank you. With that out the way, let's crack on. Another bridge opening.
Yep, double the pleasure for you this week.
Mm-hmm. Spock has some bad news for Kirk.
He's analysing data and he's found wreckage from the SS Beagle.
Yeah, it's been missing for 6 years. They've not done much looking for it, have they?
That's exactly what it last was. Spock notes there's signs of some personal belongings, but there's no bodies or body parts.
Which is a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
They're able to work out that it came from the planet directly ahead of them, and Chekhov states that they will be there in just seconds. So, Kirk orders a standard orbit as he thinks there may be survivors.
Certainly would hope so. Spock notes that Kirk was at the academy with the captain of the Beagle.
Yes, and R.M. Merrick. Also, the crew of the Beagle consisted of 47 people.
It's a smaller ship then.
Yeah, you have to be better to get a starship.
Yes, better than Merrick anyway. They come up on this planet and Kirk has it put on the big screen. Yeah,
but there's an interesting piece of information we get before then. Kirk notes that Merrick was dropped from the academy.
Oh, okay. That could be important later.
Yeah, in his 5th year, and decided to go into the merchant service.
As you do. Right, as I said, then we come up on this planet, up on the big screen, and Kirk thinks it looks very different to Earth.
It doesn't.
Chekhov thinks it looks very similar.
It looks exactly the same. In fact, I would go as far to say it is Earth.
Well, Spock says it's very, very similar. It's got the same amount of water and land. The land's just shaped different.
Mm-hmm. And he also, I think, detects large cities.
Pre-atomic.
But cannot tell what era it is from. Surely it's their current era. Why would they have to relate it to Earth?
Yeah, no. So I've already done that in the introduction. We talk about this being, and they talk about it during the episode as being like the 20th century, but you don't know how many centuries there's been human life or equivalent life on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's just for ease of reference, I think.
Yeah.
Uhura at this point tunes her television into the local signal.
Yeah, but again, before that, I think Spock notes that there are radio capabilities, excellent logistical infrastructure, but no atomic power. And that's, again, relating to... But why do you assume there has to be atomic power? Why would this
the
follow
order
the
of things
same?
on Earth was different, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, Uhura. She can pick up a news broadcast that is using some old technology.
Yes, Kirk has it played on the big screen and we see the local police arresting somebody, and it looks a bit like the 50s or 60s from Earth.
However, it's quite clearly a propaganda piece.
Well, there is a concerning voiceover, isn't there? Bit of exposition.
This is similar to the Nazi episode as well. There's dissidents being clubbed by a totalitarian police force.
Yes, in this case, the dissidents who are being arrested are being referred to as well-treated, well-protected, intelligent slaves. So what are they complaining about?
And the news report finishes before it goes to sports, where we witness men fighting to the death in a Colosseum-type structure, as the voiceover claims them to be petty criminals.
I think one of them is named and is called a barbarian, and Spock notes, once the picture is lost, that the name matches a crewman from the Beagle.
Yes, William B. Harrison. This is pretty much the Running Man. We've discussed the Running Man before, I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure my great-grandfather was called William Harrison.
Was he?
Possibly. I'm not going to put any money on it, but I think that might be right.
Maybe it was him.
It could have been. Well, that's not going to work.
Okay. Yeah, because he wasn't B. Harrison, was he?
Obviously. Wrong middle name. Anyhow, Kirk seems quite perturbed by all this. He does a sort of stare off into the distance.
Yeah, he says it looks like a 20th century Rome, as Spock points out that Harrison is listed as a flight officer on the Beagle.
At this point, Kirk orders the transporter room be prepared for them to beam down, and we get the credits.
Yeah, we arrive on... Did we mention the planet? It's Planet 4 something or other.
Oh, yeah, you just said Chekhov said it was seconds away. Yeah, I can't remember its name.
Okay, Planet 4. Planet from now on.
The fourth planet.
They beam down onto some rocks. We see 2 moons, so I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah. But for some reason, they've decided to go down in uniform despite hoping to go unnoticed.
Yeah, and they also have a discussion about beaming quite far away from where they're intending to go. Now, this is standard practice.
Well, Kirk complains that they're too far away, and Spock says they absolutely, definitely won't be seen beaming down in this location.
No, this is for sure he's worked this out, and this is extremely safe.
Very, very safe.
Yep. There's no chance whatsoever of being apprehended at all.
None.
Spock is a logical, scientific mind.
He's applied his mind to this task and come up with this ideal location.
He never gets it wrong.
Nope. He gets into an argument with McCoy about smog, though.
Yeah, I think Spock starts to rabbit on about the makeup of the atmosphere and describing it, and McCoy just says, yeah, we call that smog. Or they called that smog.
Yeah, stop talking.
Mm-hmm. So they work their way down the rocks that are on the little hill to the bottom.
Well, we do get another sort of exposition bit where Kirk explains the Prime Directive, and Spock says it must be in force here because there's been no other contact. Yeah,
and this is the big issue that I had with this episode. It really irritated. It got to me.
It's not even the first time lately. It's about the 3rd or 4th episode out of 5 or 6 now where they've gone, Prime Directive, very important Prime Directive. They even recite the Prime Directive in this one.
I'm sure the listeners are bored listening, but I'm bored saying it, but there's so many examples of them just ignoring the Prime Directive. And in this episode, and we'll discuss it later on, there are so many good reasons to ignore or to disobey it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they would be held accountable in any way. I don't think they'd be punished for it.
I mean, I suppose you could imagine that Kirk's maybe been reprimanded for past breaches and is being very careful now.
I don't think that he's the type of character. I think he puts his crew ahead of that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, anyway, so they have that sort of exposition dump for people who are only watching Star Trek for the first time.
Did you like McCoy's line?
What was that?
He wishes that one time they could just beam down and claim to be the Archangel Gabriel.
Yeah. Make people do things for him.
Yeah.
Act like a god, yeah, fair enough. He doesn't see the funny side of it.
McCoy points out quite rightly that's because he would never pass for an angel with those ears.
However, their squabbling is brought to a sharp halt by gunfire and then a voice from the rocks demanding that they put up their hands. So Spock's made a complete arse of this. He's
put them down in the wrong location carelessly and he's got them captured, and then
within seconds
he's about to start going on and on about something stupid.
What's that?
That they speak English.
Now, they always speak English.
Yeah.
Every planet, no matter who. We've had ghosts and clouds and all sorts of people, and they all speak English. Why is this a surprise to them? And all the planets are always M4s?
Class M.
Class M, sorry. Class M, yeah. This isn't a surprise. Oh, look, it's a bit like Earth and they speak English. Yeah, like every other bloody time you get down.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's an implication, certainly later in Star Trek, I don't know about now, that they have universal translators with them, so they hear as English things that are being spoken differently. So Kirk goes for his phaser.
Which is a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah. What is? Going for his phaser?
Yeah.
Yeah. Folk are firing guns at you.
I mean, even if you get for your phaser, you could lose Spock or McCoy because of your...
Yes. So, having been receiving another warning shot for doing this, he and Spock agree that they are serious when they are being told to not move.
4 men with rifles then come out and walk down towards him and ask who they are, as one takes Kirk's phaser from him, and he deserves that.
Absolutely. The guy who seems to be leading the group is wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
He is. And Roman, I think they're all wearing Roman type sandals. He's named Flavius, is that right?
We find out later, yes, he's Flavius.
And they ask Spock where he is from because of his ears, as we heard in the intro.
They claim to come from another province, and Spock remains amazed at their use of English.
But Flavius is not interested in any of this. He thinks they must be a new Praetorian Guard and claims that he would like to kill them, but Septimus would be unhappy.
Septimus Noon.
Yep, I was about to say that. If the title of a Jonathan Creek episode, if you like Jonathan Creek, there's a podcast out there.
Yeah. Anyhow, they're being now led along and they hear a guard whistling a signal as they approach and are met outside of a cave,
where they are brought to the elderly Septimus, who appears, and they're joined by others as well. There's a tribe here, a group of them.
Yeah.
Flavius tells them that he wanted to kill them, but the wiser Septimus is calmer and more open to listening to them.
Keep always in your mind, Flavius, that our way is peace.
For which we are grateful, for we are men of peace ourselves.
Are you children of the sun?
Well, if you're speaking of worships of sorts, we represent many beliefs.
There is only one true belief. Roman butchers, sent here by the first citizen.
Do we look like any Romans you ever saw?
And are you slaves like ourselves?
Our people don't believe in slavery.
Roman lie. We must kill them. Sir, we came here looking for some friends. 47 of them who were stranded here some 6 years ago. They wore clothing similar to ours. Have you heard of such men?
Septimus, I know killing is evil, but sometimes it's necessary.
No.
But they've located us, our hiding place. It's better to kill a few of them than all of us.
Wait. I can prove we're telling the truth. A small device. I'll take it out slowly. Kirk to Enterprise. Come in.
Scott here, Captain.
Scotty, lock in on my transmission beam. Scan us.
Scanning, sir.
Including ourselves. How many of us are there?
12, Captain.
Good, Scotty. Continue scanning. We'll maintain transmission. Big out. The Enterprise is our ship, somewhere at sea. That's all I can tell you. If it isn't sufficient, you will have to kill us.
Before I forget, we had Kirk there going for his weapon before the clip, and that reminded me of an earlier episode where a red shirt went for it.
Yeah, the apple.
The apple. And I think he died, didn't he?
He was immediately killed by the tribespeople. And
Kirk was outraged. He said he was just a young and inexperienced officer.
Yeah.
But he did exactly the same thing himself, though.
He did.
Anyhow.
I want to know why Kirk would think this was persuasive. It's like, oh look, we can count you. I mean, it's the equivalent 20th century, a walkie-talkie type radio thing wouldn't be that impressive.
No, but it's not the fact that he can speak, it's the fact that...
You can count them.
Yeah, they would know. It's not a walkie-talkie then. No, he can't see them all. He's asked Scotty to scan them. So he's proved that he can...
Scan
things in the local vicinity.
And that's enough to prove that they're not Romans?
Don't know. Maybe enough to intrigue them to buy a bit of time.
It seems like a bit of a bold gambit. So yeah, if this isn't impressive, you have to kill me. It's like, well, I'm just going to kill you because I'm not at all impressed by that.
However, this does work, as Septimus points out to Flavius that the Empire has no such device and that they are now to be considered friends. It doesn't mean to say that even if the Empire doesn't have it, they could be spies for them.
Yeah, or they could be hostile in some other way.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like the way that Flavius, every time Kirk or McCoy said anything, got more and more angry and more keen to kill them.
Captain's log 4040.7.
Quite a long log.
Go for it.
You want the whole thing?
What you've got?
I've written the whole thing.
Go for it.
So on the surface of Planet 4, System 892, won the confidence of a group of runaway slaves who live in caves not far from a big city. They wear rags and live under primitive conditions, but they are creatures of a heavily industrialised 20th century type planet, a bit like Earth. And then he goes on to explain Hodgkin's law of parallel planet development, which is a bit of a get out.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently planets are supposed to develop along similar lines.
Well, if you come from the Big Bang, I suppose you could say that, couldn't you? It would make some sort of sense. You all develop at the same time, and
You're assuming that the planets have the same resources and they have the same climates and the same.
yeah, but not all would. So some that split from the same sort of part
So
of the.
given the same circumstances, the same things will happen.
Yeah, well, I think maybe if it explodes from a singularity,
Yeah.
some will go out in the same sort of direction, won't they? Or some will go in the opposite direction, and
I'm not sure that the bit goes back as far as the Big Bang. It must go back just to the origins of life on that particular planet, which will depend on other things.
listen, I'm trying to give them a bit of help here.
I'm looking forward to the episode when they find a planet full of dinosaurs that hasn't been hit by any meteors. Anyway, on this Earth, apparently Rome never fell, and the world is ruled by emperors who can trace their line back 2,000 years to their own equivalents of Julius and Augustus Caesar.
That's what it says, yep. In the cave, they have been welcomed into these dwellings as Spock rifles through some magazines.
It's
and
like he's waiting for the dentist.
yes, and McCoy scans some of the people as Kirk talks with Septimus, who claims to know nothing about other men like Kirk.
Yeah, despite Kirk asking in 4 different ways.
Yeah, so Kirk presses on and asks if he has heard stories of men who came from other worlds, but Septimus confidently states there are no such places and the stars are just lights from heaven before he blesses the sun.
Indeed. At this point, Spock wants to show Kirk something he's seen in a magazine.
Yeah, I thought it was handing him some sort of gay porn magazine, to be
Why?
fair. Well, it looked like it. Not that I've seen a lot of them, but it was
Okay, if that was your first instinct,
it was some oiled up buff dude on the cover. It definitely looked like it.
could
That
be one
might
of
be
those
the
sort
thing.
of muscle type magazines, men's fitness.
That is borderline, yeah. I mean, I think the gay community quite like a men's fitness magazine.
Do they? I don't know.
Well, if you're into the sort of oiled up buff guys, then yeah,
Why not?
exactly.
Anyhow, that's not what Spock wants to show Kirk.
No, what is it he wants to show him?
A car.
Yeah, it's an advert for a 20th century car called the Jupiter 8.
Now, you're using that 20th century term again.
That's what they use.
Well, Kirk does.
Mm-hmm. He continues and notices other items named after planets from Earth's solar system.
Well, they're named after Roman gods. You've got Jupiter, Mars, Neptune, and Septimus condemns these as false gods.
Yeah, he said he used to worship them when he was a senator, but since hearing the words of the sun, he became a brother, and for that he was made a slave, and that sounds about right.
Yep. If you start hearing things,
Mm-hmm.
fair enough. Kirk says they need help to get into the city, where one of their friends was recently seen, but Septimus advises, just leave. I mean, I think the entire episode would have been shorter, but I don't think they'd have lost any particular knowledge, or
No.
there would have been nothing.
Yeah, the resolution of this episode, I'm not sure what was learned or what was achieved.
Yeah. Don't just go blundering into situations without backup.
In any case, Kirk says it's not possible to leave and asks if he knows the man by name, Merrick.
That causes a reaction.
Doesn't go down well.
Like everything else he said, it makes Flavius want to kill him even more.
Yeah, the rest of them all gather round in a threatening manner, and Septimus is shocked at the mention of this name. Kirk stupidly then presses on and says that he was the leader of his friends. I mean, once you
Read
get
the
this,
room.
once you get this reaction, think, yeah, I mean, he wasn't a good friend. I knew him. He was more of an acquaintance, really.
I didn't really like him.
No, I didn't respect him, and he certainly didn't lead me. But it's like, yeah, this guy, great guy, love him. He was a man. Best of buds.
Merrick apparently is going by the name Merricus now. He's become the first citizen and is a butcher.
So, well, I mean, get some nice cuts of meat then, and he's not a candlestick maker, no?
No, he's a butcher of men.
Ah, right.
Spock has Septimus confirm that this happened 5 or 6 years ago, and Flavius says that if Merrick is their friend, he is not.
And he mentions, Flavius mentions that they were at some games and he became the lord of these games.
Merricus did, yes.
Yeah.
Kirk now explains the Prime Directive, which he is actively breaking at the moment.
Yeah, and says that if Merrick is Merricus, he should be taken away and punished. But that wouldn't be satisfactory. You know, we see this in our own world affairs. If someone breaks the laws of the land, you want to see them serve their punishment where they committed the crime.
Yeah, you want to see the punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to the well, I suppose, mind you,
Justice has to not only be done, but be seen to be done.
Yeah. Although in fairness, it's the crime of breaking the Prime Directive.
Yeah, it's not a crime on this world. So.
I suppose. He asks Septimus for help in getting to the truth, and he agrees to discuss it with the others. Whilst they are away having their confab, Kirk tells Spock that Merricus was dropped from the Academy for failing a psycho simulator test, and he was hardly the type to become a political leader.
McCoy, on the other hand, is more concerned about the fact that Rome on Earth did not have any sun worshippers, making this sect quite curious.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He wonders why the planet apparently parallels Earth in every other way apart from this.
Indeed. Septimus and his pals return and agree to help. They will get some clothes for the 3 men, and Flavius will go with them.
I thought that was a bit of a lazy way. I mean, Flavius would have argued against this.
Yeah, to have this behind off screen.
Yeah, him just going, yeah, cool, we'll come back. How did he agree to do this?
It's unknown.
But they are warned that the police are everywhere. And then he gives them the blessings of the sun. Outside, we get an unusual Dutch angle.
Okay.
It was quite nicely done. And I think it was to show them and the sun in the shot at the same time.
They're dressed now as slaves. They're wearing jeans and these t-shirts with sort of chain link designs around the neck.
Quite smart, yeah. They follow Flavius. Is it Flavius or Flavius? Either.
Doesn't really matter.
Through some trees to a point where they're going to wait until dark, obviously on the edge of the city.
Fortuitously, Spock has remembered his woolly hat that he uses regularly.
Yes. At this point, Kirk asks Flavius if he is a slave, and he responds by saying, well, you are indeed barbarians if you've not heard of Flavius Maximus. Obviously a well-kent chap.
Maximum Flavius.
Mm-hmm. Who was he? Who is he?
He was the most successful gladiator in the province until he heard the word of the sun and found acceptance in the notion of peace and freedom after some struggle.
He admits it wasn't easy to believe as he was trained to fight, but the words are true, apparently.
Yep. Fortunately, they're in a very secret hiding place at this point. Well, they stopped to have the conversation.
Yeah, behind one tree and a couple of leaves, really, because they're interrupted by machine gun fire and are shortly surrounded by 5 police officers.
Yes, they immediately identify.
Apparently they shouted, stun, stun, stun.
Yeah, that's not going to be contemporary by the time we release this episode, is it? I think it might stay in the news. Anyhow, they immediately recognise Flavius and identify the others as barbarians. We then get a weird comment from the police officer who says it's been a long time since he saw barbarians die in the arena. But literally the start of the episode, we saw a TV report of a barbarian dying in the circus.
Yeah.
Like that same day.
I think he's just trying to rub it in that he's going to die.
Yeah.
Captain's log, 4040.9. Over shots of a 20th century city with buildings and cars, Kirk explains that they find themselves in this parallel planet.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything thoughtful. It's just, it's really similar. Wow.
We go to jail next.
Yeah, in this prison cell, you got Spock and McCoy basically carrying Flavius in, while Kirk tries to arrange a meeting with Merricus.
Did we mention why they're carrying Flavius in?
I no doubt he's been knocked out.
Yeah, he was attacked.
I'm sure that's what happened.
Understandably, the lead cop dismisses this request.
Kirk then says that he may be a friend of Merricus and asks whether the policeman wants to risk that being true if he says nothing.
A bit like Goldfinger there.
They actually tried the same thing in Patterns of Force when they wanted to speak to John Gill, but they just got told to get lost on that occasion.
Later in the cell, Flavius explains that long ago there were rebellions by the slaves, but they were always put down. And over the centuries, they were given enough rights, such as medicine and pensions, that they ended up accepting their position. Was this some sort of attack on socialism?
I'm not entirely sure what it's meant to be an attack on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just they're trying to project how slavery would have developed if it hadn't been challenged.
Right.
Roman slavery, obviously not the American version, which is a bit different.
Spock claims that this is fascinating, but McCoy thinks it is entirely logical, which results in Spock telling him that
Stop using my word.
if he could show emotions, he would be annoyed, yes, at the use of his use of the word. However, McCoy defends himself, saying that medical people are trained in logic, and Spock has a go back, claiming that he never considered he had any training at all, thought it was more a case of trial or error.
Well, with the Vulcans it was. So I was like, I don't know how to do Vulcans, but blah, blah, blah. Zip, zap, zop, and maybe you'll get better.
Watching on, Flavius asks Kirk if they are enemies. And with a smile, he says he's not sure if even they know. And they seem to be in this episode, and perhaps gradually over the last few, this bickering has become a little bit more intense and real than I think that it should be.
I think it started to turn in that episode where everyone was really tired and Spock had to fly into the amoeba.
Yes.
So up until then, it was always clearly joking and they were friends. Mm-hmm. But from then on, there's been this kind of edge where you're just not quite sure if McCoy actually just doesn't like Spock, which doesn't make sense.
It doesn't seem to be taking it too seriously. And we hear later on as well, there's a scene, I think it's actually one of the clips I have, that, it just seems
the writing's missing something.
Uh-huh.
Anyhow, Kirk starts to ask Flavius about sun worship and is told that it began as long ago as the start of the Empire. Yes, he explains that the message of the sun is that all men are brothers, and this was kept from them, but that he sometimes wonders whether it's true because man appears to have to fight to survive. Kirk reassures him that it is true. At that point, some cops show up to take Flavius away. Yes, in preparation for the morning games. He refuses to fight, claiming to be a brother of the sun, but the cop laughs at this and tells him that he is as peaceful as a bull with a sword in his hand. After he's gone, Kirk indicates to Spock and McCoy that this might be their chance. He pretends to the guards that McCoy is ill, and it takes McCoy a bit of time to twig. A bit slow here, isn't he? Yeah. He doubles over in apparent pain, and when the guards come in, it allows a bit of a pinchy-punchy to happen, and they overpower their captors. But I've seen this a few times. They get about 3 steps. Yes, this happened in the one when they were being kept with the collars on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they get about 3 steps out the door, and Merrick shows up. Dressed in Roman attire and accompanied by another man and some cops with machine guns. The other chap is introduced as who? It's Proconsul Claudius Marcus. He's a wee chubby man with a sneaky look. Yeah, he's a creepy wee guy. We don't really trust him from the off, I don't think. No. He looks like he would try to sell you a car. Yeah. He invites them for a reunion to his place, I think. His quarters. But before they leave, Merrick tells Kirk not to judge him before he knows the facts, and that Marcus knows who and what they are. Yep. So we're up in his quarters. They are offered food, drink, and on the face of it, they are treated like old friends. Marcus seems intrigued by the Vulcan. Yeah, he's heard about them and he would take 50 for his arena. Likewise, he says that he would like to have McCoy or a McCoy in all his hospitals, as it would improve the level of medicine, yeah. Before they sit to eat, and Kirk is recommended what? Oh, it's sparrow broiled in garum. Being served by a lovely blonde waitress. However, he is more interested in finding out what is going on.
We had meteor damage, Jim. I went ashore with the landing party to look for iridium ore for repairs, and I met this gentleman. Go on. He convinced me it would be unfair to this world to carry word of their existence elsewhere.
Contamination. Can't risk that. Oh, you'll understand as you learn more about us.
So I made the decision to stay.
What happened to your crew? Did they voluntarily come ashore?
This is an ordered world, Jim. The conservative world based on time-honored Roman strengths and virtues.
What happened to your crew?
There's been no war here for over 400 years, Jim. Could, let's say, your land of that same era make that same boast? I think you can see why they don't want to have their stability contaminated by dangerous ideas of other ways and other places.
Interesting. And given a conservative empire, quite understandable.
Are you out of your head?
I said I understood it, Doctor. I find the checks and balances of this civilization quite illuminating.
Next, he'll be telling us he prefers it over Earth history.
They do seem to have escaped the carnage of your first 3 world wars, Doctor.
They have slavery, gladiatorial games, despotism.
Situations quite familiar to the 6 million who died in your First World War, the 11 million who died in your second, the 37 million who died in your third. Shall I go on?
Interesting.
I'm not sure that's relevant.
Why not?
People that died in the wars weren't slaves.
But what he's saying is that this slavery prevented them from dying. They've got a stable society, so it's a bit of give and take. You know, we've got some slaves and all these people don't have to die because of that. Is it worth it? That's the question.
No.
Okay.
Kirk dodges this question anyway and starts talking about his ship and his oath being his whole world.
It's not really true, is it? It's not his whole world at all. He's got a boss who'll tell him what. You know, he's not, you know, a sort of renegade.
No, and it's only 1 week since they tried to replace him anyway.
Yeah.
He notes that what happened to Merrick's oath is obvious, but Merrick gets around to answering the question from the clip about what happened to his crew, saying that those who were able to adapt to the world are still alive, those who couldn't adapt are dead.
Kirk sounds disgusted at this and wants to know why he sent his own men into the arena, but rather than deny it, he and Marcus inform him that his own crew will be joining them on Planet 4 in a little while.
This is the murky twist, isn't it?
Yeah. They're going to do it with the use of his communicator, which they now have.
Yes, Claudius, or Marcus as you call him, at this point refers to Merrick as a trained ship captain, saying that he's had the benefit of the knowledge of this man.
Only a small ship.
He's overrating this guy slightly. We might come back to that point.
Yeah.
He suggests that Kirk would do anything rather than see Spock and McCoy put slow. There's a lot of assuming going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Put slowly to death, and they give Kirk the communicator.
So with a grin on his face, he takes it and he starts to speak with Scotty before he's surrounded by machine gun wielding cops, and he decides against whatever he was considering saying and instead tells him to simply stand by.
I think he was about to ask to be beamed up.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is my big issue I have with this episode. So we then have this total nonsense as Kirk says that he could order down 100 men with phasers, and Marcus agrees that yes, he could do this and it would defeat his armies, but that would mean breaking his oath with a punishment of death. Bugger off. No, it wouldn't. Absolutely no chance here.
Well, I've noted he doesn't know Kirk very well if he's relying on his reluctance to break the Prime Directive.
Yeah. The only thing is stopping him is this reluctance to break the Prime Directive. He can't rescue his ship, all his people and themselves. There's no way that you would... There are times when you look at the law and you think to yourself, no, my starving children, I'll steal some food for you. My dying relative who needs to get to the hospital, I'll break the speed limit. You make decisions based on the situation you're in, and sometimes you think to yourself, yeah, that's the law, but I'm going to have to break it.
Yeah.
And no one will and the authorities would say, yeah, that's fine, yeah, we understand why you did that. No punishment.
Probably.
Even today in the most sort of serious of offences, i.e. murder, sometimes you can justify it. The abused partner, the person who provided some sort of euthanasia because of the conditions.
The person with the really annoying grandparent that just wanted to...
That as well. But even in those cases where it's against the law, you're looked upon with sympathy.
Not always.
Not always, but a lot of the time you are.
Hope.
Yeah. So I don't accept this at all. And I think they've sort of retconned this, the severity or the seriousness, the gravitas with which it's given this Prime Directive, and now it's a case of they can never disobey it. It's been proven not to be the case.
Also, I don't think that Merrick is subject to the Prime Directive. He works for a merchant company, he doesn't work for Starfleet.
Yeah, but they're not talking about Merrick.
Well, the reason that Kirk gave for coming to extract Merrick was his breach of the Prime Directive. But if he doesn't work for Starfleet, then there is no such obligation on him.
Now, I don't know. So, okay, I assumed, but that Starfleet was still effectively the government. So,
Starfleet's the military.
Yeah, but is it the military? Is it the military wing of the government?
Of the Federation. But I don't know if the merchants. I would think the merchants were individual private companies.
No, because then Mudd could do what he liked. He's just a private individual, and they can lock him up and decide to do what they want with him, can't they?
I suppose there must be some intergalactic legislation.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Spock makes things worse here by confirming the situation in relation to the directive.
Yeah, much to the annoyance of McCoy. Again, I totally agree with McCoy here.
There was no need for Spock to say anything.
No. Marcus goes on to antagonise them by saying that the Enterprise could even destroy them from up there if it wasn't for that pesky Prime Directive again. He then reminds Kirk that Scotty is waiting on a message and asks him what he's going to do.
So Kirk gets back to Scotty, telling him condition green, and that's all.
Yeah, he says condition green, all is well, and then abruptly ends the call.
Yeah, so he's not ordered for any men to be sent down, not with or without phasers.
No, but obviously Merrick knows what this condition green is, so he's able to...
Does he?
Oh, yeah, of course he does, yeah.
It wasn't clear to me that was the case.
No, because Marcus gets angered at this point.
Yeah, because he didn't order his men down to get put in the circus.
No, but it's more than that, because he ended the call so quickly. He knows he must have said something. He knows that he said condition green, so he knows that's something.
Yeah, but I assumed they thought that means everything's okay.
Don't think so. I think Merrick knows for sure what the code green is.
I don't know.
Well, how would he not know it?
He doesn't work for Starfleet. Anyhow, Merrick tells Kirk he's made a mistake and they're not playing around. They're going to kill him.
Scotty log 4041.2. He confirms a code green means that they are in trouble, but he is prohibited from taking action. I'm not sure he would have a code for such a situation.
You get codes for strange things. I mean, I was held up picking up my fiancée from work yesterday because there was a code brown in her work.
My two kids had code browns last night.
Oh, what was it for?
Upset stomach.
In this case, it was a kennel that needed cleaning out.
Right,
same sort of idea.
I'm sure. Probably not as messy.
Probably not. Yes, Scotty says he can't take any action, but he knows they're in trouble. We actually see him ending the log. We kind of cut to him on the bridge, don't we?
We do.
He has an idea.
What's that?
He orders Chekhov to pinpoint the power locations and work out how to overload them.
Yeah, I don't like this either. I don't think it makes much sense.
It's not doing nothing, is it?
Exactly. He's saying he can't interfere, but he can cut their power. That's interfering.
Yeah, and he has no idea whether that would help or hurt.
Yeah, maybe Kirk needs the power for whatever he's up to down there.
Yeah.
And maybe, cutting the power would just enrage whoever, whatever situation they're in and
make things worse.
They'd be stabbed to death.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
He gets a medal for this. Fool. Back in the arena, the camera pulls back from these pillar-type structures, sort of Roman Colosseum type thing.
Yes, I thought it was quite a nice twist. It turned out to be a painted backdrop when they're in a studio.
It was brilliant, in a TV studio with the crew dressed in 60s-style clothes behind the scenes.
So it's out of Columbo.
Yeah, I really liked it.
So you've got a commentator sitting on scaffolding next to a camera operator.
Yeah, we see him introduce Name the Winner, which is going to go out live and in colour, and is sponsored by Jupiter 8 dealers. That was good. He then goes to a 40-second ad.
Yes, he gives Claudius this 40-second warning, and we see Kirk handcuffed between Claudius and Merrick as Spock and McCoy are brought out onto the arena floor.
Yes, to fight Achilles and Flavius. And we see the fake applause machine, which we all are accustomed to these days. Sporting events.
Yes, the wee guy with a button.
Yeah.
Yes, the sound effects man doesn't look like he's having a great time, does he?
No.
Quite fed up.
Yeah. Confusingly, the commentator claims that it is victory or death, but that the audience will name the winner. How does that work?
Well, maybe they're going to impede the one that the audience doesn't want to win in some way, take away their weapon or something.
You think?
Don't know.
Doesn't really seem. So the whole point is these two guys are going to fight.
Or maybe it's going to be like there'll be two fights and the audience chooses out of the two winners who is the overall winner. I don't know.
That sounds garbage.
Yeah.
It's a stupid idea. At the very least, then have the two winners fight each other in the final.
You would think.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to fight to the death, and then I've just killed you. I can't. I'm the winner. How can he be the winner? He's dead. No, he's the winner.
Winner stays on. More guys. Flavius at this point talks to McCoy and tells him he doesn't want to fight him.
Yeah, he's not keen on attacking him, but is whipped by a Roman off-screen who demands that he does what he has to do. Kirk asks if Spock can help McCoy if he wins his fight, but told no by Marcus, who gives him his word that only the weak will die, and he wants to know if he's ready to order his men down.
Merrick says this is why he gave in the end, as the Romans do not fear death.
No, they're clearly stronger and have thousands of years in the practice of killing and enslaving.
Flavius at this point is giving McCoy tips to defend himself.
Yeah, he's telling him, put your left, protect your jaw, keep the left hand up.
We get more cheers from the fake crowd as this carries on, because Flavius and McCoy were kind of playing at it a wee bit, and now they're getting into it.
I thought it was quite funny because Flavius says, come on, at least try. He's like, what do you mean I'm trying? You thought I wasn't trying. Marcus then taunts Kirk and wants to know how revolted he is by these games, but Kirk tries to play it cool.
Yeah, he says he's seen much, much worse in other parts of the galaxy and has had to select men for certain death before.
Yeah, I think he actually says that he's seen things that make this look like a folk dance. The fighting continues, and so does Marcus.
He's not persuaded by what Kirk has to say because he's studied Merrick and concluded that there is no backbone in the human species.
And also, we should say that Kirk saying that he has had to select men to die before is not a lie.
No,
he's oversaw that on numerous occasions.
You put this red shirt on. Merrick explains to Claudius that Kirk is way above his capabilities, but Claudius sees no sign of superiority and even inferiority in the way that Spock and McCoy are fighting.
The fighting continues and Spock beats his man and then saves the fallen McCoy by pinching his opponent. This is called a foul, and Merrick is asked for his opinion on what should happen to them.
He defers back to Claudius.
He bottles it, yeah.
And ultimately, he offers the choice to Kirk, an easy death or not, and he doesn't engage. So the men or McCoy and Spock are taken back to their cell, and Kirk is sent to Claudius's own quarters.
Yeah, and you think, okay, he's in for a rough old time here, but no, he finds himself alone with the blonde waitress from earlier. I noted here at this point he's going to have to find a solution that involves him doing a blonde again.
No doubt. She says that she's Claudius' slave, but she belongs to Kirk for tonight. But he thinks it's a trick and he will not fall for it.
She's wearing an Andrea type get-up, I noted.
Yeah.
Not that unappealing.
No.
Now, yeah, well,
we'll come back to this.
Yeah, there's issues here as well, isn't there? Anyway, yeah, he's suspicious and thinks that it must be a trap. However, she's very insistent that
definitely not a trap. No.
Down in the cells,
Spock's shuggling the bars of the cage.
Yeah, and claims not to be angry or frustrated, as such emotions are foreign to him. And perhaps realising that they may be close to the end, McCoy takes the opportunity to try and connect with him on a human level.
Spock, I know we've had our disagreements. Maybe they're jokes. I don't know. As Jim says, we're not often sure ourselves sometimes. But what I'm trying to say is...
Doctor, I'm seeking a means of escape. Will you please be brief?
Well, what I'm trying to say is you saved my life in the arena.
Yes, that's quite true.
I'm trying to thank you, you pointed-eared hobgoblin.
Oh, yes, you humans have that emotional need to express gratitude. You're welcome, I believe, is the correct response. However, Doctor, you must remember that I'm entirely motivated by logic. The loss of our ship's surgeon, whatever I may think of his relative skill, would mean a reduction in the efficiency of the Enterprise, and therefore...
Oh, why you're not afraid to die, Spock. You're more afraid of living. Each day you stay alive is just one more day you might slip and let your human half peek out. That's it, isn't it? Insecurity. Why, you wouldn't know what to do with a genuine, warm, decent feeling.
Doctor.
I know. I'm worried about Jim, too.
A couple of things about that scene there.
At least a couple.
Yeah, well, we mentioned earlier that the relationship seems to have, or the banter between the both of them is taken a bit too seriously, and this scene I didn't think was necessary. It's almost as if they're both accepting that they have, or they didn't like each other.
No, I don't think so. I think Spock at the end, when he says, "Really, Doctor," it's like, you've taken us a bit far. Are we not? This isn't meant to be serious.
Well, okay, yes, that's the thing then. So he's apologising, and he said, "I need to apologise for all the insults. You know, it was a bit out of order." And Spock's like, "What do you mean? I always assumed it was a joke."
Yeah.
But on the other hand, are we meant to think that, you know, Spock accepts that, just can't show it? You know, he was saying, "Oh, I'll consider you a doctor or a medical person that would affect the running of the ship," but actually that's him just
I think
being.
we do, and I think McCoy is just acting out here because he's worried. But the way that he plays it at the end is as if Spock's done something wrong, when all he did was save his life and then not accept the praise for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, up in the chamber, we've got a very problematic scene to discuss.
Yeah, let's go on with it. Kirk, as we could have expected, doesn't need any help. Well, not for a few hours anyway. He is enjoying the offerings of Drusilla. Is that a weird name, Drusilla? It seems like a sort of...
Yeah, I think it's something out of Buffy the Vampire
Yeah. Or what's the one, the Count Duckula?
Okay.
And he reluctantly takes her up on her offer to service
on her offer.
to service him. And then, from the reduction in the candles, we see that a good few hours, of course, have passed. He's not a wham bam, thank you ma'am type person. There's many hours of pleasuring later. He's awoken by Marcus himself. Who
before that, let's talk about what happened.
Well, we can only assume that they get down to business.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to have any qualms or concerns about the fact that she's literally a slave with no free will to consent or not consent.
This is like people trafficking, you know, into prostitution.
Yeah, it's essentially a rape or a sexual assault.
Yeah. She's a slave who's been ordered by her master to offer herself to him, and he says, yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
Knowing that she's a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, Claudius comes in and wakes him up, and there's a bit of an exchange about a missing communicator before Merrick comes in with some guards.
He then agrees to give Kirk an explanation, but it isn't good news. Although before he starts to talk, he embarrasses Merrick.
Yeah, he kicks him straight back out again, saying this is a conversation between men.
Yeah, the grown-ups, beat it, wee man. So he goes on to tell Kirk that he will die shortly, but as he is a man, he gave him those few hours of pleasure with Drusilla as a mark of respect.
That makes it worse.
It does, yeah.
And Kirk says he appreciates it.
What can you say? The problem for Marcus is that they have to show that defiance cannot be tolerated. But on the positive side, if there is such a thing, he will at least perish quickly. And the same will go for McCoy and Spock.
Yeah, because of the respect that he has for Kirk.
Mm-hmm. He is then escorted away to the arena, where he will be the highlight of the evening, and it will be shown in full-colour TV.
They've got 15 minutes booked in the early show for his execution, and then they have a little exchange about TV ratings, which I think might have been a dig at what was happening to Star Trek.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay. We then have a Scotty log. Coincidentally, he is now ready to disrupt the power sources on the surface. We heard at the top of the episode that this was a planet very much like Earth, and many cities.
Yeah.
Was he going to do every single city?
Maybe just the one he beamed them down to.
Okay.
Anyhow, back in the arena.
The announcer lets the audience know that before the first heat, there will be a simple execution, and Marcus orders the executioner to use a single thrust.
He says, "Don't move, you'll only die harder."
But as he goes in for the kill, what happens?
Flavius comes in to save the day.
Yay, the cavalry. He runs in, attacking the executioner, and this causes the police to open fire and kill him. But,
and the executioner.
Well, yes, because I think Kirk grabs him and uses him as a human shield.
Yeah.
And then Who does Kirk finish off with a knife?
Kirk then gets a sword and deals with one of the other guards that's hanging around.
Is that what is okay? Yeah. And at this point, Scotty manages to cut the power, which allows Kirk to run off with a machine gun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which reminded me a bit of the Chicago episode.
Yeah.
When they had the Tommy guns.
Sure. So he heads down to the jail and releases McCoy and Scotty in what looks like an incredibly dangerous way.
Well, I was going to say that wouldn't work. You've got a big bowl of metal and you're trying to shoot it with a tiny little bullet.
Well, I'm not sure if it'd work or not, but the fact is that you've got a solid metal lock and bars.
Ricochet.
You stand at point blank range, yeah, you're asking for a ricochet to kill you.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he says there's no time to explain, and then once again everyone arrives just as they leave the cell.
Now, this is another piece of nonsense we have. Marcus and the guards, as you say, arrive, and he orders them to fight with swords.
So that they can show Merrick how men die.
So they drop their guns, but Kirk doesn't.
Nope.
But he decides to not shoot.
Yeah, and then Spock grabs a sword. And then there's a stunning plot twist.
What's that?
Merrick's got the stolen communicator. It wasn't Drusilla, after all. And he tries to communicate with Scotty to arrange for Kirk, Spock and McCoy to be beamed up.
Yeah, but he's stopped by a dagger to the back from Marcus.
Yes, but in the last seconds of life, he's able to toss the communicator into the cell where Kirk, Spock and McCoy are holed up defending their position.
And they are able to beam up just seconds before the police come to their senses and open fire.
Yes. Captain's log.
4041.7.
Kirk is giving a commendation to Scotty for
ridiculous.
I think this is how things happen though. It's like Inspector Gadget. At the end of every episode, he's done something stupid, but it's worked out and he gets thanked and commended for his performance.
If all the crew involved in this whole incident, he's the least, I suppose. I mean, why not give it to McCoy and Spock who were down there fighting?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
We see, I think we come onto the bridge as Kirk continues to dictate and Scotty's very pleased and wanders off.
Spock and McCoy then join Kirk, and with the help of Uhura,
oh no!
There's the revelation of what was actually happening is presented.
Gentlemen. Captain, I see on your report Flavius was killed. I am sorry. I like that huge sun worshiper. I wish we could have examined that belief of his more closely. It seems illogical for a sun worshiper to develop a philosophy of total brotherhood. Sun worship is usually a primitive superstition religion.
I'm afraid you have it all wrong, Mr. Spock, all of you. I've been monitoring some of their old-style radio waves. The Empire spokesman trying to ridicule their religion. But he couldn't. Don't you understand? It's not the sun up in the sky. It's the Son of God.
Caesar and Christ, they had them both. And the word is spreading only now.
Philosophy of total love and total brotherhood.
It will replace their imperial Rome, but it will happen in their 20th century.
Wouldn't it be something to watch, to be a part of? To see it happen all over again. Mr. Chekhov, take us out of orbit ahead, warp factor 1.
Aye, sir.
Nauseating nonsense.
Garbage.
Absolute guff.
When you hear people talk about religion in Star Trek, what they mostly say is, oh, Star Trek is very anti-religious, but this is about the third or fourth time
It's not at all, is
that
it?
it's had a very pro-religion...
Yeah, very sort of conservative approach to...
Yeah. That's just sounding ridiculous.
Yeah.
For a start, the wonder in Uhura's voice as she talks about this Son of God thing.
Yeah, and also the talk of the best of both worlds. Yeah, as if because the Son of God, yeah, there's been no violence in the name of that over the millennium.
Yeah,
Everyone's peaceful after that.
All their wars are still to come. When proselytised to other parts of their planet.
Exactly, yeah. That's just the start of it.
You can impose their made-up religion on everybody else.
Uh-huh.
I suppose much like on Earth, there was actually no sign of Christ anywhere there. Anyway, before everyone who likes that sort of thing tunes out, let's move on.
Okay. Trivia?
Oh, I had lots of questions in the episode for you.
Yeah, okay, then go for it.
Did you think that this idea of the Roman society in the 20th century made sense?
No.
Good, neither did I. Merrick, hero or villain?
I would err on the side of hero.
Okay.
But not by much, we're talking
Balance,
yeah, sort of 55-45.
Okay, trivia. Original air date 15th of March 1968, directed by Ralph Sinensky. This was the 5th of his 6th. You can hear more about him in the podcast for This Side of Paradise. John Knuble ought to have received a story credit for this one, having written the story, but he never. Instead, it was Gene Roddenberry and Gene Kuhn who got the credit on the episode. Knuble was probably best known for his writing on Wagon Train, The Fugitive, and The Wild Wild West, and he died in 1992 at the age of 71. William Smithers played Merrick.
Smithers.
This was his only Star Trek appearance, but he also appeared in series like Ironside, Dallas, where he had a recurring role as the arch-villain Jeremy Wendell, and here's a connection, Sledgehammer, where he played Colonel Poltz in They Call Me Mr. Trunk.
Ah, right.
He is now 93 years old, and at last check was still teaching acting seminars.
As of the recording?
As of the last time I could find it on the internet. Logan Ramsay played Claudius Marcus. This was his only Star Trek role, but he also appeared in shows like Mission Impossible, Mork and Mindy, Murder, She Wrote, and Knight Rider. And he died in 2000 when he was 79.
Then we've got a Columbo connection this week.
We do, but I'm not at it yet. Ian Wolfe played Septimus. This was the first of 2 Star Trek. This was the guy in the cave. This is the first of his 2 Star Trek appearances. He also showed up in series like The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Wonder Woman, and Hawaii Five-0, as well as films like Dick Tracy and Witness for the Prosecution, which was Agatha Christie.
I like Dick Tracy.
He died in 1992 at the age of 95, so he's one of our 19th century actors, born in 1896.
Good, that's good, yeah. Dick Tracy must have been one of his final movies,
I think it was his final movie.
Is it? There you go.
Rhodes Reason played Flavius.
It's a good name.
This was his only Star Trek appearance. He was also in shows like Perry Mason, Boris Karloff Presents, and Here's Lucy. He stopped acting on screen in the late 70s and died in 2014 at the age of 84, having suffered with Parkinson's.
I think he's got a brother who was an actor as well.
Yeah, I think Rex Reason, something like that, yeah. Shep Houghton played the studio cameraman.
Yeah, okay.
This was his only appearance in Star Trek, but he was also in shows like Batman, Mission Impossible, and 3 episodes of Columbo.
Was he now?
Making him this week's connection.
Okay, what was his name again?
Shep Houghton. Do you remember who he played?
Nope.
He was uncredited for all 3 appearances.
That's fine then.
He played party guest in A Case of Immunity.
Okay.
He played auction guest in Any Old Port in a Storm.
All right.
And he played chess match observer in The Most Dangerous Match.
Important part of each episode.
He died in 2016 at the age of 102.
Oh, very good.
At the time of his death, he was the oldest living Star Trek actor.
What year did you say, sorry?
2016.
Okay.
The oldest living one now is from The Next Generation. I think it's 106.
Ah, that's impressive.
Yeah, he wasn't in the original series though, so we can't talk about him.
Only the good guys get to live over 100.
Is that true? Bread and Circuses is a literal translation of the Latin phrase panem et circenses, which was used to explain the preference of the masses for food and entertainment over freedom. And it's usually attributed to the satirical Roman poet Juvenal.
There you go.
The coat of arms on Claudius Marcus's clothing is William Shakespeare's coat of arms. The cave, you like this one, you might know it, where the religious group were hiding out, is probably best known as the entrance to the Batcave in the 1960s Batman series.
Yes, okay, now that you mention it.
It's one of the most used locations in Hollywood, and it's found right underneath the famous Hollywood sign.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good trivia, I like that.
The play on words with sun and sun only makes sense in English and similar Germanic languages. Neither Italian nor Latin, the languages of Rome, would have had this confusion. In terms of international titles, the episode was called Sous les chemins de Rome in France, which means on the streets of Rome. In Italy, it was Nell'arena coi gladiatori, which means in the arena with the gladiators. And meanwhile, our friends in Japan went with Moitotsu no Jiku, which means the other Earth. Next week is the final episode of Season 2, Operation Earth, which I'm sure somebody wanted to turn into a spin-off.
Sounds interesting. You've done the social, so that's us, I think.
Yeah, we're done.
Cheerio.
Bye.